And being real leather, these are definitely gonna wear in over time and, you know, kind of conform to your butt, which is a weird thing to say, but it's something you gotta think about with leather seats. Yeah, this accelerates really well, again, for a V6 with that upgraded axle ratio. Again, hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing an AEV Wrangler, not just any AEV Wrangler. This is the JL370 Classic, which is super limited edition. Before we get into the video, I do need to give a shout out to 3 different places. I know it sounds pretty crazy. First off, a huge shout out and thank you to Richard with AEV for giving me some time with this Wrangler. This is actually one of their demo vehicles, so I really appreciate him giving me some time with the product. And then a shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Dodge Ram here in Sandy, Utah for giving me their lot to film this video on. And then the last shout out actually goes to the Dodge dealership in Huntington Beach, California, because they are the only dealership that currently has 2 of these for sale. All the other ones are already sold out, so if you happen to want one of these, then definitely reach out to them. With that being said, let's get into the video. So under the hood of this particular JL370, we have a 3.6 liter V6. It goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It is good for 285 horsepower and then 260 pound-feet of torque. You can get the JL370 kit with the 2.0 turbo Wrangler, the 4xe, and the 392 as well. Now let's go over the front end of the Classic Edition. So we have the windshield banner there at the top, and then notice here with the custom hood decal, you've got the yellow, the red, and the orange. Absolutely love the aesthetic. And then since this is a 3.6 Rubicon, you do have the hood vents on either side. Notice with the custom Rubicon logo here on the side. Now this one does come equipped with the factory LED lights, and then obviously Jeep's signature front grille right there. Now we do have these gigantic light pods here in the center. We've got the covers over them to protect them. These lights are extremely bright. Obviously they're for off-road use. And the thing's really cool about these lights is the lights within the lights, if that makes sense, are angled in different directions as to basically give you more illumination at night, which I think is pretty cool. Now this does also come with a worn winch. Synthetic cable, you can get steel cable. The benefit of synthetic cable obviously is if it snaps, it's just going to fall to the ground, where steel cable, well, yeah. Anyways, you guys can see here with the fog lights on either side. Now something that's really cool about this particular bumper is it has these little knee pads right here. Yes, knee pads, so that you can basically rest your knee on this to access the engine instead of having to stand on the tire there on the side. Now, something else that AEV does with their custom bumpers, because yes, even though this looks factory, it is not. It's slightly different than the factory bumper in terms of the shape. It's supposed to help out with approach angle, but also they use a lot of boron steel with their bumper, so it's very thin and it's actually stronger than regular steel, and so that's how they're able to get the angles they have on the bumper to help out with approach. But then they're also able to make it lightweight and thin compared to a lot of other aftermarket bumpers, and it also has the same exact coating as what you have with the factory bumpers, so it's not going to rust or anything like that. And then you guys can see here with that aggressive approach angle, you can see how they've angled the skid plate. And then yes, we have a light bar down here, and the benefit of this being yellow obviously is for dust and all that fun stuff. And yeah, that's a lot to go over on the front end, but there's the front end. So coming on the side here, our tire and wheel setup is 37 by 12.5 by 17 in the front and also in the rear as well. And then notice how we have these custom white wheels that are part of the Classic Edition. And of course you gotta have the white lettering because it matches the white wheels. And the contrast between these wheels and the other accent pieces is pretty crazy. Now, this is where stuff gets exciting for me as an off-road enthusiast. So we have a 2.5-inch lift, and we've got the Bilstein 8100 series shocks that are specifically tuned for the V6 Wrangler with a remote reservoir as well, as you guys can see, to keep things cool. Now you guys can see here with the well, it's kind of hard to tell with the suspension, with the springs and everything. This has the heavy duty springs. Now, these springs are supposed to be meant for a Wrangler that has a tent and everything. This Wrangler obviously does not have a tent. This is just for demonstration purposes. So if you're going to do a bunch of overlanding with your Wrangler and you're gonna have like a tent and a bunch of weight on top of it, then you're gonna wanna get these springs. But if you're just gonna be doing this kind of stuff with it, where you're gonna be driving around town and you're gonna be doing off-roading without a bunch of gear on it, then you don't want to get those springs. So hopefully that helps you guys out. Notice here with the rock rails on the side, and you guys probably already saw, again, with more of the orange, yellow, and red. And then obviously the rear shocks also with the remote reservoirs, again, to keep things cool. And I know I already gave you guys like a full side view, but I got to give you guys another full side view because this thing looks cool. It kind of gives me the welcome to Jurassic Park vibes. I understand it's not the right colors, but it just kind of gives me those. Now, popping over to the rear, this is where things get even more exciting, in my opinion. So we have a full-size spare. So this, again, is also a 37-inch tall tire. And notice how everything is still in place with the camera and the third brake light. And then, of course, we got to have our subtle AEV badge down below. And then you guys can see here with the bar that kind of wraps around the bumper, obviously, to take a hit for you if you are off-roading. And something that's really cool is you guys can see this little kind of like cap system, and I'm probably going to completely mess up explaining this, but basically how this is supposed to work is if you have a hard enough impact where it actually bends this bar, which is very unlikely, then apparently it's supposed to kind of like pop this out, which is very inexpensive to replace versus having to replace the entire bumper. And so again, I probably butchered that, but moving on, you guys can see we've got the diff cover. Now this is something that is completely underrated. Basically, this provides extra protection on one of the lowest hanging bits on the Wrangler, which means that you're not going to get stranded off-road. And it also has a little cap right there that you can unscrew so you can check the diff fluid if something does happen to go wrong. Now, moving on to the next little bit, you guys can see we've got a fuel tank right here, 10.2 gallons, as the little sticker right there says. And notice how it uses the center area of the wheel to also hold fuel. And it's self-ventilating, so you don't have to worry about screwing and unscrewing a cap if there are temperature changes, which I've seen so many videos on Instagram of people having to like unscrew their caps for their gas cans because they just completely overheat. And also with this 37, this is definitely, you know, hefty, but it's honestly, man, I mean, you guys can see obviously I was able to do that with one arm, so it's pretty manageable. And well, that's the outside. Now, popping inside, the door panel is unchanged here with this package, but the seats are not. So you've got AEV in the headrest, and this has the premium leather seats, as you guys can see, and I'll show you what the front looks like as well. Really like the design on these. This looks really cool. It's perforated all down the center. It looks a lot better than the regular Wrangler seats. And well, you do have to step up quite a bit with those 37s. Now, yeah, of course, got to start it up. Notice with the custom gauge cluster, again, AEV. And then you can see with the steering wheel, you've got like the red stitching, all that. But the fun thing is, look at that. You've got the custom painted dash. So notice it's black all the way across, and then obviously it says classic there on the side. And then since this is built off of a Rubicon, still is normal Rubicon stuff, so you still have a low range transfer case, you still have front and rear lockers, sway bar disconnect as well. You still have a lot of nice amenities like heated seats, for example. And you can see here with the camera system, still got the nice camera system. Now I'm curious if this has the front camera as well. Just has the backup camera on it. And this one obviously has a soft top on it. You can obviously get this with a hard top. You don't have to get this with a soft top. This particular one just, it's how it is. And then last but not least, here is our kind of like window sticker type deal that shows you guys what comes with the Classic Edition, just in case I missed anything with our walk around on this. So the best way to look at the Classic Edition is it is basically a JL370, which is AEV's upgrade on the Wrangler that has 37-inch tires, hence the 370. If it's a JL350, that's built off of a 35-inch tall tire Wrangler. And then it has the Classic Edition, you know, emblems and everything here on it. Now, this is going to be one of 50 in the entire world for the Wrangler. There's also a Gladiator version that's also one of 50. Well, this isn't one of 50, but there are only 50 in the world. So very limited edition Wrangler or Gladiator with the Classic. Let's see how it drives. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off. Here's your visibility over the hood, both of the mirrors. Then throughout the rest of the rear, and let's set off. So, setting off in this JL370 Classic Edition, and this is a very important test drive for me because if you guys follow the channel, you know that I currently own a, well, let's see if we can show in the camera view, bright pink Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. And I've been going back and forth in terms of what kit I should put on that Wrangler, because I do want to lift it a little bit and put 37s on it and upgrade the shocks, because frankly, the stock shocks on the 392 with the Extreme Recon are not great. And so yeah, this is going to be me testing this out to see how this drives, so I can see if this is something that I would want to put on my 392, and also show you guys this classic edition. So first off, from a ride quality perspective, I was told that this is going to ride a little bit firmer compared to the same exact package without the stiffer springs that again are meant to be able to carry a heavy load on the top of the Wrangler. And that being said though, this still rides really smooth. Like, this still has a nice, like, comfortable ride. Now the biggest thing that I'm noticing about this compared to like my Wrangler, for example, other than the fact that, well, we have a massive horsepower difference, is this handles a lot better. It has this tight feeling with the steering. It doesn't, like, the steering's not so vague all over the place like my Wrangler, and it feels like it handles more like a, it's not quite a sports car, but it has more kind of like sports car type handling is the best way for me to describe it, which I really appreciate. Yeah, it's so precise. So these upgraded shocks definitely help out quite a bit, and you wouldn't expect that because again, this is lifted higher than what my Wrangler has, frankly. So another thing that they'll do is they'll actually re-gear the Wranglers and Gladiators just like what the Extreme Recon has, so 4.56 axle ratio, which makes sense, right, for crawling and all that, and so that you can move bigger tires, because again, this has 37-inch tall tires, and so that also helps out again with the acceleration on road. Then also when you're off-roading, if you have gearing that's that low, that is going to help out quite a bit. And I guess while I'm still stuck here in traffic, I want to talk about like how this interior feels really special. The seats, again, with the different look, and they actually do feel different compared to regular Wrangler seats. I like how these feel, and being real leather, these are definitely going to wear in over time and, you know, kind of conform to your butt, which is a weird thing to say, but it's something you got to think about with leather seats. Yeah, this accelerates really well, again, for a V6 with that upgraded axle ratio. Again, it's moving the 37s perfectly well. And so some other things that I'd like to talk about with this is the fact that when you do have compression with this, it doesn't drive awkwardly like what you'll see with some Wranglers. So what AEV will do is they'll basically make sure everything is aligned, and I'm probably completely butchering this trying to explain this, but they make sure everything's aligned, right, with the suspension and the control arm. Everything's aligned, okay? Because when you lift vehicles, sometimes things will kind of get crooked and all that. And again, that's like the best way for me to explain this with my peon brain today. And so what that means is when you go over, you know, bumps and everything, the suspension still compresses like stock. It doesn't compress at an angle, is what will happen with a lot of other vehicles. And I've felt that with a lot of these lifted Jeeps and lifted trucks and everything that I reviewed. And that's something that, frankly, I didn't know that AEV didn't. And it kind of now shows me why these AEV conversions drive so well. So to fully sum things up, this thing looks really cool. It's limited edition, and it drives amazingly well for a lifted Wrangler. This is by far the best lifted Wrangler that I have driven to date. Everything is just perfectly engineered for this. And like I said, down to the shocks. Like what a lot of, you know, aftermarket companies will do is they'll just throw different shocks on a vehicle. Whereas this, yes, it has Bilstein shocks, but these Bilstein shocks are tuned for a lifted 3.6 liter V6 Wrangler. And then if I got these shocks for my 392, which is most likely going to happen after this test drive, then it'll have shocks that are tuned for a Wrangler 392 with a lift. So I think that's really cool, just how custom this actually is. It's not just, you know, throwing on some tires and some shocks and just hoping that it works. And so with that being said, I want you guys to let me know what you think about the JL370 Classic, if this is something that you would go for. And there you go. Let's get some things up for our video on this AEV Wrangler JL370 edition. And then, like I said, a huge shout out to Richard with AEV for giving me some time with this Wrangler so I can film this video, the Dodge Ram in Sandy. And then if you happen to be looking for one of these classic editions, apparently there's two at a Dodge Ram dealership in Huntington Beach, California. And with that being said, I'll see you.